Yes. No, that's not altogether very correct. You see, people of my generation, remember I was at school already in the 40s, the late 40s. And I remember very clearly when Nkrumah came back and when he was locked up, by the British, um, and then finally released after elections, the CPP won, hands down. And at 3 o'clock every afternoon, we will have a school break. This was Accra Government Boys School, the junior school, which, if you know Accra well, is opposite the old Farisco store.
Yeah.
On what was then called the Station Road. You know, yes, Nkrumah every afternoon at about 3 o'clock would be traveling in his black Opel car from Lagos Town, Accra, Newtown area to the assembly, the National Assembly, they used to call it then. And we would come out at break, 3 o'clock, and we would go and buy peanuts, groundnuts, and roasted plantain on the roadside opposite the school. Just at the time that Nkrumah would be driving up, and we would wait until he came past. And we were little kids, no more than about 7, 8, years old. And we knew he meant great things for the country. We all knew, and we all supported him. We didn't know what it was, but Nkrumah was Nkrumah, and we all were in favor of what he was trying to achieve for Ghana. Now, later on, so we spotted him all through, and in fact, when I was at Achimota School in 1958, late 58, in November or December 58, there was the All Africa People's Conference. And we were asked by one of my seniors, Chris Hesse, who became Ghana's ambassador to Russia shortly before he died some years ago, to be ushers at the Accra Community Center where the conference was held. And so I had the opportunity also as a young, strapping youngster, about 14, 15 years old, at Motor School, who came out to be ushers. 4, 5, 6 of us did that. So I saw people like Nkomo and Mumbai and all the big names who came to the conference. And all these things left a marks on your mind and formed us. So, but 2, 3 years later, when I was at Advanced People, we went on an excursion in Kumasi. And we, like youngsters, went out in the evening. And on our way back, it was a time when Nkrumah was being threatened by all sorts of people, because Nkrumah was moving in the direction of progress and rapid emancipation and pushing the border of freedom forward. And people were saying Nkrumah never dies, or sort of thing. We were stopped in the evening, late evening, schools to sixth formers, going to town and going back to Wesley College where we were housed at that stage. And the officer who stopped us interviewed me. Where you come from? What are you doing? I said, oh, well, we just students, and we just innocent. We went out and we go back to. Don't worry, we are not dangerous people, and we're not out to kill Nkrumah. When Nkrumah's time comes for him, he will go like everybody else. Then he said, hey, what did you say? Did you say Nkrumah will go? I said, yes. It was an innocent statement. The police officer, wanting to be over diligent, immediately decided that, oh, you were a troublemaker. Decided to take me to the police station.
Mm.
They released all my other friends who were with me. And so I spent the evening in jail. The rest of them, though, it was a morning jail, that because it was around midnight when this happened. But you see, yes, so that was my experience. I got suspended from school for a while, for 2-3 weeks, during which time I had the fortune also of meeting James Baldwin, the African-American writer and so on. But that was when Nkrumah died later years. I was in Amsterdam, and diaspora people in London asked me to come. I was then the Secretary General of GANASO, Ghana National Students Organization, which was the wing of the student movement from Legon, which had in 1966 been chased out of power. And then in 1966, when there was the coup, the student movement split into two. I was in Europe then, but the student movement split into two. Split into one wing went west into the embrace of the Americans and so on. And they had their headquarters in a place called Utrecht, in the Netherlands. It was then led by Van der Poy and Klutze, and somebody else, I think. But they became part of what they call the COSEC, the Coordinating Secretariat of Universities, something like that. Now, the other wing, the left of the student movement, so it was split into two. One half went west. The other half went east. The left of it was, went east. In 1966, they became part of the IUS, the International Union of Students, based in Prague, Czechoslovakia then. And in 1969, when I started teaching in Heidelberg, they approached me and they said, look, the chaps in the East, the Ghanaians in the East, approached me and said, please, we would like you to become the leader of this group, our group, of GANASO. So, well, I said yes, and they wanted only leftists, so I said yes, and I was already clearly ideologically on the left. So they made me the Secretary General of GANASO. So in that capacity, I managed to help unite the pro-Nkrumahs. Our man in the U.S. was Kwame Nkrumah, who was then based in the New York State University, I think, in Binghamton. And we had people in Britain, Kwame Kwesi Kwaa Prah and others in Britain, and people in France and in Germany and in Czechoslovakia and Russia. And well, I managed to be instrumental in the unification of these little groups, and were able to take Ganaso back into Ghana immediately after the assassination of Amilcar Cabral. The Soviets suggested that we should have a workshop in Accra, Legon, Accra, and so Ganaso went back to Ghana and joined the home base now, and became, I think, nukes or something. But I didn't go to that workshop. I didn't go on account of the fact. I didn't go to the workshop because I was not in agreement with what the Soviets were trying to tell us to do.
Right.
They were insisting that we should invite the ANC and not the PAC. We should invite, for Zimbabwe, we should invite ZAPU and not ZANU, and that sort of thing. So I said to my colleagues, Ghanaians, that look, I cannot support this sort of position, and I don't think it is right for our sponsors, the Soviets, to be instructing us on who to invite in Africa and who not to invite. I'm not in agreement with that.
Right.
So if they go along with it, if they want to go along with it, then I will resign immediately, because I'm not in favor of people from outside telling us who to invite, and it's an African thing. And so I didn't go to that workshop in celebration of Cabral, but it was on account of the fact that I refused to accept the Soviet directive that we should. So that's how I got disentangled with Ganaso. So my relationship, when Nkrumah died, I was invited to come to London to give an oration in praise of Nkrumah, which I did. So my relationship with Nkrumah was like that. It's not either one way or the other. I started as a supporter of Nkrumah, and there was this funny incident in 1961, and then Kumasi, and then. But I have always supported him. Always.
That's very interesting to hear.
Always regarded him in great regard, because of all the African leaders that my generation has seen, there is only one other one who displayed the sort of intellectual journey, steady maturity, steady progress that Nkrumah registered. If you look at Nkrumah's work, if you look at his first book, Towards Colonial Freedom, which is from about 46, 47, and you look at his last book, In Exile, The Revolutionary Handbook, it's a steady journey, philosophically leftwards, with greater clarity with time. In the beginning, he said he was a non-denominational Christian and a Marxian socialist. In the end, he was no different from people like Ho Chi Minh, ideologically, and Mao Zedong. And he was there. He was in that position also. The only other leader in my generation, in our times, that I've seen who had that intellectual humility and progress was Nyerere, Julius Nyerere, forthright, straightforward, and admitting his mistakes and making progress forward. But Nkrumah was, in that sense, a very senior intellectual. He was a man who was making progress all the time, and he was writing all the time, and he was making good progress. And Nkrumah never took a penny from state coffers, so looted the country or anything like that. People, when he died, people realized the man was just a simple man. So Nkrumah, it's no surprise that Nkrumah, when he, at the turn of the century, at the end of the last century, when the BBC did a survey or voting or whatever they call it, to find out what people thought was the greatest person, African, in the last century. Nkrumah won hands down.
True.
Okay,
while Mandela was still alive.
Yes, while Mandela was still alive. Mandela was still alive. Nkrumah won hands down. Nkrumah. So that's my brief regurgitation of my memories of Nkrumah and its significance. You see, what Nkrumah achieved for Africa, nobody has been able to do that.